explicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the crowdfunded translation project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Indian left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jacobin, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballad or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to...
Well, welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. How's everybody doing, chat? So, it's come to my attention that the center-left is striking back, according to Pod Save America, and I thought that might be an interesting thing to kick things off with. See what the centrists are having a bit of a freak out, as we've seen with the fact that it turns out, once again, that social democracy remains very popular. I mean, there is constantly this effort to act like this is new, but the reality is the polls have been saying this for decades, and the only thing that's new is, I mean, first of all, the communications technology we have, and the fact that as a result of that, it becomes much harder not to at least meet people halfway with these sort of social democratic candidates like Mamdani and various others. Bonsoir. And apparently, so the centrists are having a freak out. Now, last time we met the ghouls...
Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm John Favreau. On today's show...
Last time we saw John Favreau in particular, he was explaining why it was disqualifying that Daria-Lisa Chevalier had not apologized for being right about the genocide in Palestine. Just to, in case anyone is unfamiliar with this group of people here and wonders what sort of people they are, he actually was quite angry that she had not apologized for protesting the genocide when it was still just being threatened and when it could have still been stopped with relatively minimal loss of life and human suffering.
Writer and founder of the Slow Boring newsletter, Matt Iglesias. We've had a lot of
oh god, yes, Matt Iglesias is on here. The man who has an entire career of being confidently wrong about things.
Make the case for why the Democratic Party should move to the left, and a lot of progressive candidates who represent that direction. We've also had plenty of people, including us, critique the Democratic establishment. We haven't really had
not really though.
In a while.
See, this is one of those terms. I talk a lot about wiggle words. This is another one. because what is the Democratic establishment? Who is it? How is it defined? See, this is one of these terms, I feel like it must have been focus grouped or something, because you see centrists using it all the time, and they use it, and it seems to just be a way of signaling to their audiences that, yes, I understand that you're pissed off at how shitty and right-wing and just generally suckworthy the fucking Democratic Party is, but we understand, and we're mad at the Democratic establishment as well. And they don't say who it is, and they won't, give you a definition. They won't define it politically or anything like that. It's just this amorphous thing, because you could actually, if you wanted to, talk about this in political terms. You could say that what we're talking about is right-wingers who are bankrolled by billionaires. And that would but the thing is, the minute you say that, you're talking about most of the party. I mean, in terms of, I don't consider anyone who doesn't have actual decision-making power, any say in the decisions of the party, to be part of it. So most of the party is just like most of Congress, really. Well, most of the Democrats in Congress anyway.
Make a full-throated case for a center-left politics that emphasizes moderation.
Ooh, I can't wait. Everybody, this is what people have been demanding so much, is a center-left politics that emphasizes moderation, chat. I'm stoked. Finally, some center-left politics that none of this like universal healthcare shit. That's authoritarian. None of this rent control shit. Why we should, people, if they like it when their landlord just raises their rent on a whim, then they should have the right to have that.
I know that probably sounds exciting and not at all annoying to many of you.
Oh, I love how they even recognize that their own audience is not really thrilled with this.
Matt recently wrote a piece titled "How the Center Left Can Come Back in 2028." That's based in part on a series of critical, tough questions that Nate Silver recently posed.
Oh wow, another guy who is just famous for being confidently wrong. It's the confidently wrong brigade. Like, how many predictions do you have to just completely fuck up before you are no longer respected as an analyst? It's a trick question. As long as you are offering a right-wing conclusion, it doesn't matter how many times you fuck up. Nobody cares about predictive accuracy, because it isn't about explaining why things are the way they are, or even explaining what the situation is. It's about justifying it and explaining why it can't get any better. That's all that matters. So the fact that these motherfuckers constantly get just utterly cooked by the events that they try to predict does not matter.
Center left. I found both Nate's questions and Matt's response really useful in understanding where folks like Matt are coming from and what they're looking for from the party in 2028 and beyond. I also had plenty of questions of my own, so I invited Matt on to see if he had some answers, and he did.
He does? Well, yes. I mean, he always has answers. If you ask him to open his mouth, words will come out. I don't know that that's necessarily an edifying thing. He seems to enjoy it fine, but, I mean, he's just completely full of shit is the problem.
We talked about how important issue positions are in a presidential primary, the role of charisma and the ability to get attention, why Democrats have lost in recent elections.
I can't. I think, let me just jump in. I think it might be because they have shitty right-wing positions and manage to alienate the people whose votes they need. That's what you're going to explain, right?
And who on the current bench might be able to win in 2020.
Oh my god, I think I have that exact coffee mug. Now I feel kind of dirty.
It was a great conversation, and we will get to it in a moment.
Oh, that isn't a coffee mug. Okay, that's a relief.
Before we do, please consider becoming a paying subscriber
to
Friends of the Pod.
These motherfuckers do not need more money.
All their favorite cricket pods, including Pod Save America, all our great subscriber-only newsletters, and exclusive subscriber-only podcasts like Pod Save America Only Friends and Polar Coaster with Dan Pfeiffer. Plus, becoming a subscriber is the best way to support your favorite pro-democracy independent media company.
Pro-democracy independent? Like, okay. Now I'm very curious, because there's no way these are independent. but the term is being used meaninglessly. That was the wild thing about Pac-Man yesterday, where he was talking about, well, we're none of us really independent, are we? I mean, you are on these platforms, and I take money from literally everyone, all the biggest scumbags on earth. But he still calls himself independent, and these motherfuckers call themselves independent. They are not. The Dalton School? I'm not familiar with it. Does it have to do with colorblindness?
Head on over to crooked.com/friends to subscribe. Matt, welcome to Pod Save America.
Really good to be here.
So I want to talk about the...
Okay, I do have to actually slow this down so you can see that I'm not fucking with the audio. This is what he sounds like.
Factional debate within the Democratic Party over how to actually win some national elections.
Yeah, he is. He's an absolute hack, and he's very racist. And anything, his whole thing is to explain why good things can't happen and why we should never annoy rich people.
And thought, who better to do that with than the online left's favorite pundit, who can faithfully represent the views of the neo-lib shill faction.
He says that as a joke, but that's exactly right. I mean, unironically, that is exactly who he is. He's a neoliberal shill. Although a shill implies that he doesn't necessarily believe what he says. And I don't know, I think he might actually be in it for the love of the game and the love of the money.
And I think a good place to start is with your recent piece about how the center-left can come back in 2028, where your one big answer is that the center-left needs a 2028 presidential primary campaign that articulates its critique of the status quo.
Yeah, I mean, that's already going to be a bit difficult, because how do you articulate a critique of the status quo when your entire position is maintaining the status quo no matter how shitty it is?
Before we get to the critique itself, why a presidential campaign?
What do you mean, why? I mean, why a presidential campaign as opposed to just not having one? Like, what is that question?
I think something we see in politics is that political parties are really defined by their presidential campaigns.
Because that's because political parties in the U.S. don't really exist. So all they do is generate candidates, and the most prominent candidates are the ones that define them, because they don't have any meaningful existence. Oh, Upper East Side, got it. Yes, that fits.
Leadership. Everybody, I mean, you, me, people with all different kinds of ideological viewpoints are frustrated about where Democrats are at now, and they want them to be clearer and have a better message. But realistically, there's just not that much that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries can do. You're herding cats on Capitol Hill.
Wait, well, no, they're not really. They're very good at the herding. There are always just enough people to pass whatever horrible bullshit that the Republicans and Democrats have decided they want to have, but the Democrats don't want to necessarily be known for. That's no mean feat. I would say they're doing very good at the herding. I think the money probably has a lot to do with that, though.
Presidential campaigns, Donald Trump comes in, he wins a nomination, it totally redefines what the Republican Party is about.
Not really, though. I mean, he was more explicit about the racism, but I mean, it's been the party of racism for a long time. I mean, not that the Democrats aren't racist, but the Republicans are proud of it. They want that's what they want to be known for, and then they get really mad when you know them for it.
For good and for ill. And that's what's going to happen in 28.
Wait, he says he redefined them for good as well?
There's going to be a contest. Somebody is going to win it. That person will be the leader. What Democrats stand for is going to be...
I like the scare quotes.
Largely whatever it is that person stands for.
I mean...
Until then...
That is true if he is sharing my definition. Because when I speak of Democrats and Republicans, I'm only speaking of the people, the tiny, vanishingly small number of people who actually have a say in what the party as an organization does. That's virtually nobody.
You try to have good candidates in the key races. You hope they win. Everyone's going to have some who they like more than others, but it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, I thought about that after the 2025 off-year elections when everyone had this like Goldilocks view of it, where they're like, well, you know, you had some more center-left moderate candidates winning in some places, and Mamdani wins in New York, and so it's all great. We don't have to fight that much. It's like, well, yeah, it's easier to do in a midterm or a set of off-year elections than a presidential election. That's where the rubber hits the road.
I mean, I don't even understand what the point there was, because I don't. We don't have, you know, they're saying they don't really have to fight much. I mean, clearly, there are at least some challenges here. And after we watch this, I think we're going to switch over. There was a really interesting discussion between Kshama Sawant and Crystal Ball and racist rape apologist ghoul Ryan Grimm that I think was very clarifying and apparently really, really pissed off Crystal Ball.
You make clear that this center-left critique is a critique of what you call the Clinton, Biden, Harris, Schumer status quo.
How can they offer a critique of it? They are it. Like, what the fuck? What are you going to critique? I mean, I guess it's going to be, I know what it is. It's going to be messaging. They're going to say that the people do not, the people who represent the Clinton, Schumer, Trump status quo, Biden status quo, whatever the fuck, they're going to say that they don't have messaging that is relatable and connects to people. And so they have to find a way to offer politics that everybody hates, but in a way that makes them seem like they're of the people. It's going to be something like that.
How would you describe that status quo, and what is your critique of it?
What is his critique of it, other than the fact that
pretty dramatic leftward moves in the Democratic Party since Barack Obama's second.
I mean, there have been a few isolated social democratic candidates who have won. The party itself has moved way to the right since fucking Obama. And Matt Iglesias has been a big part of providing the ideological framework for that move.
And this has not been like the left, quote unquote, Bernie Sanders, his people, taking the party over. It's been establishment stewardship. But they've shifted on a lot of different things. Some of them minor, some of them big.
Like what? Give an example.
One that I read about in the piece is education policy.
Really? When was this? What the fuck? What does he think is a leftward move there? Because they're still on the school privatization tip.
Where, without really like a huge rancorous debate about it, ideas about performance pay for teachers, ideas about supporting high-performing charter schools that, the Obama White House had championed, and it was controversial at the time inside the party, just sort of went in the other direction. And then we had, a lot of discussion about this around COVID and school closure.
I mean, I haven't actually seen things move the other direction all that much, first of all. And, I mean, it would of course be good if they did, because the union busting of teachers and the privatization of public schools, I can totally imagine it. They would probably have sex.
There's different things there, but Democrats had an identity as a party of reform of the public sector that has sort of gone away.
Reform of the public sector is such a funny way to say dismantlement.
Democrats have also...
And how's it gone away? They haven't stopped dismantling the public sector. They haven't rebuilt anything. They haven't even done shit like just obvious things, like getting rid of the so-called Postal Service Accountability Act, which ensures that the post office in the U.S. is in the red because they have to fully fund the pensions of postal workers who haven't even been born yet. No other federal agency has to do it. It's just the Postal Service. And the only reason that they have to do it isn't because anyone who sponsored it cares so much about workers' retirements. It's just so there is something that eats up all of their income, and they can constantly say, look, the post office is constantly taking a loss.
Shifted a lot on immigration over the past 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, for the worse. I mean, that is a shift to the right. Because, I mean, if you go back to the days of Obama, you at least had some talk about some kind of piss-weak reform. There was the whole Dreamer thing. And then that didn't happen. And then you had, instead, they did this thing that they've started doing, where instead of actually providing actual durable legal protection for people, who are part of constituencies that they need to keep sweet. They started making it just administrative measures that could be taken away from one administration to the next, so that then they could hold that over people like a sword of Damocles. Yeah, you can stay home because, yeah, I know our candidate sucks, but if you stay home, the next guy, the guy who's coming in after us, he's going to take away, what is it? DACA and DAPA. Oh, and shit like that. Gonna take away all these administrative guidance that we have on protecting trans rights without actually providing statutory protection. I mean, and on immigration, the rhetoric is actually, it's gone from at least pretending to have humane rhetoric in, while having a horrible racist right-wing policy in practice, to openly embracing a far-right policy and actually claiming that, they in 2024, they ran on the idea that Trump isn't enough of a Nazi, that his border policy isn't racist and violent enough.
And all this stuff about asylum that came up during the Biden presidency just wasn't really an issue that people were thinking that much about.
That is a real problem. The reason that people weren't thinking about that is precisely because liberals don't really think about the horrible shit that's going on like this when it's a Democrat in charge. I mean, it was like a fucking light going off when Biden got in, because one of the first things he did was order new concentration camps to be built. He actually stepped up deportation. He did not reverse any of the worst things that Trump did there. Trump still has not actually managed to beat Biden's record on deportations. So what the fuck are you talking about? And yeah, but the thing is, he did it quietly, and since it was a Democrat, you had, the sort of liberals in the media, this whole space where you have like Pod Save America, those sort of people, would not be drawing attention to it because they're not interested in stoking a mass movement against mass deportations when it's their guy doing them. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
During the Obama presidency, there was this kind of very specific focus on trying to get a path to citizenship for people who've been here for a long time. New things came up. Democrats have, gone through a number of cycles around crime and criminal justice reform since that time, but have been sort of seen in some circles as very soft on crime. I think
which is wild, because if you look at the main things the Democrats have done in that regard, it's drowning the police in money, providing money for these cop cities, these urban warfare training centers that are popping up all over the country, the crime bill, the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act back in the 90s, which is a horrible law that made it much harder for people who were on death row and didn't get fair trials, which is really most of them, to get a new trial. And also made it really easy to deport people by just saying that they're terrorists. I mean, so when you actually talk about this, what they've done is horrible.
Left-wing Democrats have started to see that this is a problem. Everyone has sort of walked back, defunding police, things like that since then.
Oh, well, I mean, they never, what do you mean walked back defunding police? They never embraced it in the first place. They acknowledged it. I mean, that was really one of the great achievements of the uprising of 2020, was that liberals in the media and the political class were forced to even reckon with abolitionism, even to just publicly dismiss it and, shit on the idea. Previously, it had not been acknowledged at all, but it has so much mass support as a result of this constant police terror that they had to at least mention it. And then we did this whole bullshit in the media where they pretended that where you had these articles, supposedly news articles, saying, oh, well, look at what's happened since they defunded the police. And the thing is, none of the places that they claimed nobody defunded the police. Nobody had cut police budgets anywhere. But they just kind of pretended they did in the media because people had used the words. So, yeah, no.
There's been this kind of, and then on economic policy, there's been a shift. Again, it was a shift in the Biden administration to these kind of much more Elizabeth Warren-like positions about, the role of business, its relationship to the state.
It's interesting. He really avoids actually giving any giving any concrete examples. Because, I mean, you could point to, I mean, there was the most, like, social democratic period certainly in my lifetime, which is getting on for a bit at this point, was actually the first couple years of the pandemic, when you had an expansion of unemployment benefits, you had an expansion for the first time in a long time of OSHA protections for workers, and all sorts of things like that. You had a certain amount of just one-off cash aid that was nowhere near enough, but for decades we'd been told that there was just no way you could do any of this stuff, and suddenly it was available. And then in the Biden administration, one of their signature policies was yanking that shit away from us and kicking millions of people off Medicaid, and then Trump's done even more of that.
It used to be kind of a view that, you know, Democrats were a party that was going to make rich people pay higher taxes, and that,
I mean, which would be good. A lot of people would agree with that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the response to the uprising in 2020 was actually that these ruling class assholes looked and they're like, okay, we need the cops to have more guns, actually. We need more cops, because this is, we haven't seen the end of this, and the only thing that's going to keep us in power is the cops.
was going to be a non-starter for a lot of rich people in the country. But for people who could
say... Well, yeah. You know, the thing is, fuck the rich people. Who cares if it's a non-starter for them? Fuck them.
More under the Democrats, I'm going to contribute to the common will, I'm going to help the poor, whatever, you know, I'm still going to be treated, like, respectfully, as if business is a laudable thing to do with your career. And there's been shifts on both sides of that, a much more contentious relationship between the Democratic Party and the technology industry.
Not really, though. I mean, if you look at the stuff, if you look at the reality, there is this positioning where they say we're going to hold big tech accountable. But if you look at the laws, and you look at who's lobbying for them, it's big tech lobbying for them, and the laws benefit big tech. What he's talking about is actually things that the Democrats have done rhetorically in order to try to appear to be from the same planet as the general public. Oh, I know for a fact that he's been told no, and that he's been told he's wrong. I pay attention to his Twitter posts, and the replies are just people saying, no, you're wrong. He's been told he's wrong. It is, like, the main engagement he gets on Twitter, as far as I can tell.
But really the Democratic Party in the business world writ large.
So, I take your point that the party has definitely shifted leftward.
No, it fucking hasn't.
Number of issues, and I can just...
And he hasn't given any concrete example. Well, the closest he came to it was that supposedly they had backed off of school privatization. And they had backed off of union-busting attacks on teachers. And I don't think that just hasn't been the focus. It isn't that any of that's been really rolled back. Although, to the extent that it has, it probably was something to do with the fact that there were some historic teacher strikes a few years back.
Speak from experience, because oftentimes when this gets debated, I can remember when I was in the White House around the Obama campaign, and we did Race to the Top, and we talked about teacher pay.
Yeah, Race to the Top. That was, also short for, the abbreviation is RAT. And the idea was that it was an expansion of the Bush era, No Child Left Behind bullshit, where essentially you would just standardize test the shit out of schools, and the schools where the kids had the lowest standardized test scores would would lose pay, they would lose funding. They know about defunding in the political class. They do it with all the things that benefit working people. So the idea was you just kept on defunding these schools, and meanwhile the standardized tests, the one thing that they actually correlate well with is the number of students in a particular school getting a subsidized lunch. So it was defunding the schools that are already the most deprived in the first place.
We talked about immigration in the context of we're a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws, and now people on the right just like play back Obama clips from 2008 where he's talking about border security. So I get that.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Fascists find quite a bit in Obama's legacy that they could get with.
How do we know people's negative view of the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party's sort of losing some elections, big ones, is due primarily to specific issue positions and not a number of other factors? They
would really like it to be a number of other factors. That's the goal. Because if it's specific issue positions, because you can actually kind of look at the polls and you see the Democrats and the entire political class, it's not just the Democrats, it's just that the Democrats are the ones who are sort of expected to be closer to the general public on a lot of things. That they have that kind of reputation, that is kind of how they try to present themselves, even if they don't do it. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the fact that you have the political class on a lot of issues, the political class is very firmly on one side and the majority of the population is on the other. But they don't want to acknowledge that, because that direction is, if you follow that logic, then you have to start considering that maybe you have to meet the people halfway if you want to. But
you know, general perception of elitism, corruption, weakness, however you define it. Right?
I mean, is he using general perception there to also describe corruption? Because, I mean, the corruption is kind of just openly there.
A bunch of different potential factors in these losses.
Yeah, I mean, those were wildcat strikes, and their support was huge in West Virginia, too. I mean, the West Virginia strike kicked off, and they defied their, the state laws and their union bureaucracy, which was totally against these strikes. They ended up like tripling their fundraising goal for their strike fund in West Virginia, and then they used that money to provide food for the kids who would have been getting school lunches but weren't due to the strike, which absolutely, I mean, that is one of the things I hope people learned from that. I hope people were taking notes when they did that, because that was a fucking king move in terms of building popular support. Because some people have this misperception that the idea of a strike is that, we're all supposed to be fasting or something like that. We're all supposed to be deprived, when in fact the whole point of a strike is to do economic damage to the bosses, so that we can win our goals. And if you want to do that, and if you want to build support, the best possible thing you can do is find ways to ensure that the general public are getting what they need, even as the bosses are not getting what they want.
I think all this stuff is in the mix, obviously, and to an extent it connects to people. Searchlight Institute did a really interesting series of polls about corruption. People are very concerned about corruption. They think the political establishment is very corrupt.
Oh, well, they think that, do they? They think that. Like, the things that you can do openly in this country as a politician that literally would get you arrested and get you jail time in Western Europe are really staggering. I mean, you can watch Nancy Pelosi's fucking stock trades. They've exempted themselves from insider trading laws, and they just fucking trade on everything. They trade on all the stuff that's before them in Congress, and they fucking clean up. Nobody outperforms the market quite like the Senate 500.
Like, do you consider X, Y, and Z thing corrupt? And it's like trading on insider stock information, definitely corrupt. But
well, yes, and that's rampant and legal.
People also said it was corrupt when politicians do things to sort of curry favor with social elites.
Well, yes, exactly. It all sucks. He's trying to make an impassioned plea that some corruption is good. Is that where this is going?
Aren't what the public wants, right? So that's like a very expansive view of corruption, where like if you're afraid of getting canceled or something, so you're doing this, that could be corrupt in some people's eyes. You also might see that as weak. I don't think you want to be weak. I think, again, to the point of why presidential campaigns matter, moderate members of Congress are almost all people who are
moderate
that Donald Trump won. I think those people, moderate members of Congress are almost all people who are representing districts that Donald Trump won. I think,
which is interesting because the thing is, it's not because that's quite the freeze form I gave him. His tongue is like sticking out. Because for the most part, it isn't because majorities actually voted for Trump in those districts. It was because majorities stayed home.
I think those people are, in some ways, the Democrats.
Or pluralities, anyway.
They're not MVPs when it comes to like big partisan controversies, because that's not how you hold down a Red House seat. You kind of like duck those fights, and that.
Well.
Those look weak to people who are in the base, and that's not what they want, right?
Well, they're not. I love how we're trying to move it away from anything to do with issues. You want to look strong. That's the issue. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Adria. Wildcat strikes fucking rock, and I think it is not an accident that we aren't actively reminded of those strikes, those victorious Wildcat strikes of teachers in, the first Trump term as well. I mean, not to mention, Kshama Sawant brought it up in her talk with Crystal Ball and Ryan Grimm. The railway strike that wasn't, which would have been utterly historic, except all the Democrats but one voted to break the fucking strike. And should have resigned in disgrace immediately.
You can do what Donald Trump did on Medicare and Social Security. You can do what President Obama did on education issues, which is you can reposition to the center on select things.
Which he mean when you have to remember, when people like this say the center, they mean the right.
Also being like a strong voice for your party and its side on certain kinds of key issues. But I do think that issues matter to people. Like, it's not a coincidence.
He thinks people. Wow, he thinks issues matter to people. That's so wild. That's such an insight. This is why we have to listen to what this guy thinks. Because he has the big brain. And he worked out that issues matter to people. Like, people care about what happens in the world and their lives. Thank you, Matt Iglesias. Nobody would have come up with that. I mean, it says something that he says this. The fact that he just comes right out and says this like it's some sort of an insight says something about the circles he's in. That these are people, that he's surrounded by people who will absolutely argue against that sort of point. I mean, it's sort of like when there's that meme that goes around with the HR exam, and it's like, what will really help staff retention? And it's like a pizza party or pay rises. And they say pay rise is the wrong answer.
2012, Democrats had all these great ads lambasting Mitt Romney's Medicare plan. And then Donald Trump comes along and he's like, I'm not going to do that Medicare plan.
But, I mean, Mitt Romney's, his Medicare plan, okay, because I was going to say his healthcare plan is literally what Obama did.
Right now, 90% of the people who voted for Obama in 2012 vote for Hillary in 2016. But the people who were persuaded by those Medicare ads, now they got a Republican who's like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. So.
Well, no. You see, of course, this is another move. This is a standard move, too. To just pretend that people don't stay home. Because they want to present all of this in a way that is very convenient, where it's like you're trying to win voters from the other party. But that's not how that's not what they're competing with. They are absolutely not competing with the Republicans for voters, because the people who vote for Republicans will basically never vote for Democrats, and the people who vote for Democrats are basically never going to fucking vote for Republicans. There are some edge cases in there, but overall, it just doesn't work like that. What Democrats are actually competing with is abstention. And when they run right-wing bullshit that makes fucking Matt Iglesias come, then you get a lot of abstention, because people aren't really moved to take time out of their day to vote for somebody who is saying that they're going to maintain, the misery that exists, or possibly make it slightly worse, rather than making it a lot worse.
You go around the country, right? Like, not that many people are swing voters. It's a small population. But I think there are people there, right, who are looking at, these questions about who should play on women's sports teams. And they really do.
Oh, yeah, except those people aren't. That is a great example of people who are not swing voters, actually. The number of people who actually care enough about the people. Okay, first of all, it is a vanishingly small number of people who are both anti-trans and care enough about it that it will determine their vote. That they will vote for somebody specifically on the strength that they're going to be anti-trans. That is a vanishingly small number of people in the first place, and it's an even smaller number who would ever consider voting for Democrats. These are not swing voters. These are exactly the opposite. These are people who are going to, like, they don't feel politically homeless. They have a political home. They have a party that does all the shit they want, or at least enough of it to keep them sweet. They're not actually, out looking for some new place. They're scumbags, and they have a party that is there for out scumbags, and where that is validated. So you don't win anything by slagging off trans people.
You care about that issue, and it upsets them that Democrats have the position that they don't agree with, and that's a different.
Which position? I mean, I haven't actually heard. Let me see. I mean, maybe there's. Okay, I'm not gonna say I haven't. I feel like I might have heard one just very recently, who came out in favor of actually not having mandatory genital inspections for girls and women who want to play sports. But the people that I remember actually really taking a strong stance against banning trans girls and trans women from sports have actually been Republicans. It was notable specifically because there was the Utah governor who gave a really strong statement when he vetoed a law that was going to ban trans girls and women from sports, and actually,
I mean, that was not an issue that we talked about really 10, 15 years ago.
Well, no, it's not so much that. Oh, first of all, let's just note, it wasn't an issue that was talked about. But the thing is that trans girls and women had been eligible to play in sports for decades before that. And the reason it wasn't talked about is because there wasn't a billionaire-funded, Epstein-linked campaign to make this look like some sort of crisis, despite the fact that nobody can point to a single example of it causing a problem.
But I remember in 2008 when that campaign was happening, and Obama and all Democrats everywhere said that marriage is between a man and a woman. And that's not what I believed, and I know lots.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and then they noticed that their base actually had to shame them into taking the right position, and that's exactly. I mean, that's all that happened. That it was they didn't evolve. They had to be shamed.
So the younger people.
And they didn't. We got nothing from that too. I mean. It's been literally almost 20 years since a civil rights law at the federal level that would include LGBT people has even been something that was under discussion. I mean, at this point, it is so completely far from being discussed that it's actually a little bit terrifying.
That's not what they believed. I don't know what the principals themselves believe privately, but I think everyone kind of understood at that point in time that it was going to be the job of someone else to persuade the voters.
But that's not how it worked. They weren't the ones persuading the voters. The voters shamed the LGBT community the cultural shift had already happened. People were already on side with this. The politicians did not take any fucking risks on this. They did not come out on this when there was any worry that it was unpopular. When it was potentially unpopular, they were all taking the homophobic stance on it.
Our more forward-thinking progressive view was correct, and that the politicians were going to, try to get to yes with the electorate.
That's the exact opposite of what happened.
To be opposing these constitutional amendments and other kinds of things that would have completely closed the door on equality. And so some of what's happened is, I think, just a less of a pragmatic spirit, that Trump is so terrible. It makes people feel like, well, if he can get away with so much, we should be able to get away with undisciplined behavior.
Well, first of all, it's not undisciplined behavior. But yes, I mean, Matt Iglesias has accidentally made a valid point. Namely, when Democrats control everything, the House, the Senate, the White House, constantly what we hear is, we can't raise the minimum wage. There's some sort of procedural thing, and maybe these octogenarian Republicans will manage to pull off a filibuster without fucking having a coronary in the middle of it. And, well, there's the parliamentarian. Oh, yeah, I know, we can fire the parliamentarian. I don't want to fire the parliamentarian, though. And they do this constantly, and there's always some fucking bullshit reason why they can't do anything. And then the Republicans never have this problem. The Republicans just go in and they just do whatever the fuck they want, and they get away with it for the most part. I mean, it used to be they would at least get knocked back in the courts a fair bit. I mean, that, fucking did for that at this point. But, so what he's actually getting at, he calls it undisciplined behavior because he thinks doing good things for the working class is undisciplined behavior. He thinks cruelty and corruption are disciplines. I suppose on a certain level they are. I think because it is actually, I think, unnatural for humans to be as scummy as someone like Matt Iglesias thinks they should be. But the reality is people see, wait a second, if he can do all this shit and get away with it, then why is our minimum wage still $7? Why haven't we got rent control? Why isn't there an eviction moratorium? Why can't we have, like, OSHA? Why is it so hard to organize a union in this country? Why are there so many legal obstacles to it? I mean, and yeah, because if Trump can get in and just do all this shit and get away with it, and I would mention another example, which I think I might have mentioned last night, but it bears repeating, which is you could literally get rid of the issue of people being undocumented in this country and give them stable legal status with a stroke of a pen. Trump showed us how, because he's doing it to these white Afrikaners who are coming from South Africa and largely finding out that they hate it here and they can't afford anything, and they certainly can't afford the lifestyle they had in South Africa where they had fucking, an army of servants. But the thing is that what he's just done is he's just unilaterally granted them asylum. Well, the thing about granting asylum is there's nobody with legal standing to challenge it. And a grant of asylum is final. Nobody can actually go to court and say that wasn't validly granted because there's no standing. So you could just do a unilateral amnesty, just grant asylum to everybody who's here without legal status. Who gives a fuck? Most of them probably have a valid claim if we applied the international legal standards as opposed to the bullshit standards we apply here.
But that's just, that's not really how it works, you know?
Why is it, what do you mean it's not how it works? It's how it's working right now. Why is it not how it works, Matt Iglesias? Why is he going to offer a theory of why it is that Republicans can do whatever the fuck they want and Democrats can't do anything?
It's like, if he's
anything good. They can do plenty of things that suck.
Terrible. We need to take this really seriously.
Pod Save America is...
Never miss an episode, Jesus. I never have actually missed... I can't imagine it... there are many episodes I have not seen. But I would not say I've missed any.
Involve risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/crooked. It is true that, a majority of voters, especially voters in the states who need to win, routinely tell pollsters, including especially the most recent New York Times polls, that the Democratic Party is too far left.
No, they don't. I mean, okay. This is the thing. There are two ways that this question is asked in the polls. One is to allow guys like this to say that, where they'll say, they'll just use the words left and right and say, what do you think? Are they left? Are they right? Are they too left or whatever? And people will say one thing, and it has a lot to do with the political illiteracy that is a huge problem in this country, and something that we all need to do whatever we can to sort of counter. But wait, does he have two Hitler books back to back in his bookshelf there? Okay. But but then if you look at what people say when they ask people about the issues, it turns out they are actually well to the left of the Democrats on a lot of things. In fact, if you look at universal health care, yet again, the polls have shown actually that's +6 with Republican supporters. Like, if the idea is you want to win over, they're obsessed with winning over people who vote for Republicans. That's their excuse for doing all sorts of right-wing shit that everybody hates. It doesn't work, but then, I mean, the obvious thing to do would be universal health care, because that would win a substantial number of people who would otherwise vote for Republicans. Because a lot of people, the most people in this country, in fact, think that's a good idea.
And more people think, at least in the New York Times poll, more people think the Democratic Party is too far left than they think the Republican Party is too far right.
Which doesn't mean, again, if you actually look at the polls that ask people where they stand on the issues, and you compare that to where the Democrats and the Republicans stand, I mean, it's just complete nonsense what he's saying here. This poll really just, what it demonstrates is the effectiveness of propaganda. It's like when they would ask people, do you think a balanced budget is a good idea, a balanced federal budget? And they will say yes. And that gets all the headlines. Everybody thinks a balanced budget is a great idea. Well, like literally everything that they see on the subject says it's a wonderful idea. So, of course, they are assuming that if everyone agrees, it must be probably a good idea. But when you ask them the questions that matter, like, okay, do you think a balanced budget is a good idea if it means we have to cut education? Or we have to cut Medicare, or we have to cut Social Security, or we have to cut, benefits for workers or something like that. And they all say, and then they overwhelmingly say, no, fuck that. We want, we want a halfway decent living standard much more than we want some abstract notion of balance in the federal budget that doesn't even make fucking sense.
Not great. Though, importantly, in all 6 of the states where they polled, the 6 Senate states...
I mean, in fact, if you actually look at the fact that when there is an option to the left of the mainstream of the Democratic Party, that option does quite well, that in itself really challenges these claims.
Pickup opportunities for Democrats. Voters were less likely to describe the Democratic candidate as too far left than they were the Democratic Party itself.
Well, yeah, again, because this is just measuring people's propaganda. Because one thing you hear constantly in op-eds and all sorts of shit is that the Democratic Party are just too far left. They're just, especially when they win things. When a Democrat gets into the White House, suddenly you'll get all these op-eds saying, whoever it is needs to remember that America's a center-right country, and he's gonna have to govern to the middle. You can't be doing any of this crazy left-wing stuff. I don't know, raising the minimum wage by $0.25 or something a year. But, and so people hear that, and there's very little contradiction of it in any place that has a strong audience reach. So that's all that says. If you wanted to be serious about that, you'd actually look at what people think about issues, and then you would get a completely different picture. But it's not a picture that suits these guys, so they're not going to talk about it.
To attribute that to specific moderate positions taken by Mary Peltola.
Okay, because here's the thing. If people actually think that Democrats aren't right-wing enough, if that is really what they think, then the problem you run into is that these right-wing candidates actually don't do very well.
Josh Turek, Sherrod Brown, Roy Cooper, James Tallarico, because, and I don't know about all of their positions on everything, but it doesn't seem like, at least, I know enough, like, Sherrod's been around long enough, it doesn't seem like they have moderated on any of the issues where you might think the Democrats need to moderate them.
Which is strange. I mean, he hasn't really listed anyone who... those people, literally, let me hear that list again, a second.
But it doesn't seem like, at least Tallarico, moderate positions taken by Mary Peltola, Josh Turek, Sherrod Brown, Roy Cooper, James Tallarico, because...
these are people, I would have listed them, I would have expected those to be listed as examples of moderates. Yeah, exactly. And the excuse for not raising the minimum wage was such absolute nonsense, because it was like, that was the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian made me do it. Then that didn't work because people had been over the parliamentarian shit a couple of years before, and I think enough people remembered it. And so eventually somebody pointed out, the vice president can literally fire the parliamentarian. And then somebody actually raised it with the vice president, and she said, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
And I don't know about all of their positions on everything, but it doesn't seem like, at least, I know enough, like, Sherrod's been around long enough, it doesn't seem like they have moderated on any of the issues where you might think the Democrats need to moderate them.
What does that even mean? What are we even talking about? Okay, they really do not want to talk about actual specific issues, and I'm thinking that might be why these right-wing Democrats like to kind of struggle, because they know if they start to actually talk about positions, then they sound like shit. Because I would imagine they probably read the polls. I don't know about Iglesias. I think he probably just gets drunk and puts on a microphone and trusts his luck most of the time. But they have to know they would not be so careful to avoid issues in this discussion if they thought that people actually were with them on the issues.
It's a little both, right? So Turek and Peltola have both sort of said that they want to support their state's oil and gas industries, which would be a very hot take in National Democratic Party politics.
Well, I mean, that's a very useful word. They want to support the oil and gas industries. That's a very hot take, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could say it's fucking burning up. Like, literally burning the planet up. We have countries in Europe with major wildfires, like fucking all of Bordeaux. All of fucking Bordeaux is, like, on fire at the moment. They had to evacuate the entire region. So, I mean, the wine harvest will be probably a little thin next year, amongst other things. But the thing is, this shit wasn't supposed to happen till the end of this decade. Some of it wasn't supposed to happen till the end of this century. So yeah, backing the oil and gas industries as we're watching the fucking climate melt down and the planet, go to ash around us. Yeah, you could call that literally a hot take. I mean, especially in the sense that anyone who has that take can go to hell.
And, that's good. We're just all kind of getting to a place pragmatism and stuff like that. Roy Cooper,
Wait.
Alaska and Texas. And, that's good. We're just all kind of getting to a place pragmatism and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so pragmatic. I mean, there was a point a couple of weeks ago when there's a wildfire overlay on Google Maps. I didn't know that this existed. I think it may be a recent thing because all of this is a fairly recent thing. And people who are not old enough to remember that really need to have that impressed upon them that this is not the way things were actually until very recently. That this isn't, we didn't just always have fire season, it was just called fucking autumn and summer. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna just pragmatically let the planet fucking die and fuck the scientific consensus and fuck future generations. Because
Roy Cooper, he's been in statewide office in North Carolina for a long, long, long time, has a distinctive relationship with the voters there. I think
a distinctive relationship? What does that mean?
See him as moderate, at least, because he's held office for a long time. There's this... because in Matt Iglesias' mind, if somebody is getting support, that must mean they're being seen as moderate. Whatever the fuck moderate even means. Or it could just mean that the major population centers in North Carolina are largely full of people who will basically never vote for Republicans, and that's a big part of why they're gerrymandering the shit out of legislative districts, specifically in order to ensure that the cities where most people live do not have that kind of effect. Legislature, so we don't really know.
Yeah, I think she could even be worse.
Like what it is he would have done if he was in power.
I also don't. I think she would be different from Biden in the sense that she won't get elected. Like if they run her, it's whoever that is running against her that will win.
Turek in Iowa, he really had a hard-fought primary. Elizabeth Warren and others were supporting his opponent. He held and represented an Obama to Trump, switching district in the state legislature there. I don't know anything about Iowa. I've never been there.
Yeah, well, then maybe shut the fuck up about Iowa if you don't know anything about it.
Represent myself as an expert, but it did seem like it was the more moderate choice in a contested primary.
Which all that means is it's the choice Matt Iglesias likes. Like, they don't these terms, like the term moderate is just it is entirely a propaganda term. Wherever you see it, you'll hear, like, you remember the moderate rebels in Syria. Well, I mean, moderate in that case just meant the people the U.S. thought were aligned with their interests. When you hear about moderates in Latin America or something like that, that just means people will do what the U.S. tells them.
Sherrod Brown is, I think, the interesting one. I mean, I'm old enough to remember in 2006 when he was like this progressive dream candidate.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. That is one thing. That is a long time ago because, like, I was kind of excited. I was legit excited about him when he first came up at the time, because he was supposedly this anti-war veteran, And that is a branding that did not last longer than the campaign. He then went on. He's been just pro-war as they come, and then he decided to throw trans people under the bus in 2024, at the same time as he was also backing genocide in Palestine, and people didn't like that.
And like that was a different era in Ohio, right? Like everything was very different back then. You know, he in Obama's first.
It isn't a different era in Ohio. See, the thing is, they're treating this. They're trying to okay. Here's another thing you have to actually look at when they say these things, because what he's saying here is that, you know, Republicans have swept everything. Well, the thing is, the Republicans in a lot of states, including Ohio, have been practically running unopposed. Sometimes they have been running literally unopposed because the Democratic Party will not fund their opponents. So it isn't that these people are popular. They aren't. And in fact, when you actually have like statewide referenda, for example, you can see how unpopular they are. Like, I mean, we had an abortion rights referendum for a constitutional amendment in Ohio a couple of years ago. Absolutely swept it. You had people from the most rural, you know, right-wing, you would assume right-wing areas of the state, and they were enthusiastically coming out, and they were absolutely pissed off at the amount of out-of-state money that had gone to lying to them about what the amendment was even about. Like, the reason you have a state like, a state like Ohio, that where actually when there is something that is statewide, it is actually generally not the hardline right-wingers who win. It is precisely because there has been this defunding of any kind of opposition to Republicans at the state level. So, and that allows guys like this to then say, oh, well, you know, it was a different era. Yeah, it was an era in which the Democratic Party actually funded opponents, and so the Republicans couldn't just do whatever the fuck they wanted. But now they've decided to just let the Republicans do whatever the fuck they wanted, and so this is what you get. And then guys like Matt Iglesias can come up and say, oh, well, that's just how Ohio is.
He really clashed with the White House over some energy stuff, related to the steel industry, things like that. In Biden's term, he was much more kind of a good soldier, got along with everybody. Maybe not the best idea in a state that Trump won by 6 points. So I don't know, you know exactly where he's going to come down there. Some of it, though, is that, you know, when you have a specific individual candidate, they can try to communicate who they are.
We're going to avoid talking about Palestine, which is one of the things he was dog shit on.
A caricature, right? And so that is always the power of individual candidates, particularly individual candidates who, unlike late-stage Joe Biden, can like actually speak and engage with them.
Yeah.
Yes, it's useful when candidates can talk to people. Like, they really just want to do whatever they can to avoid talking about why people actually can't stand these right-wing ghouls that the entire political class just foists on us, and why people will will vote for the alternative if there is one. Okay, so this is the Kshama Sawant conversation, which I thought was really interesting. It was very clarifying, because I have to say, I mean, I do not actually think electoral politics offers any real way forward. But to the extent that you're going to do it, I think Sawant actually has kind of the right idea, and it's part of why she ends up clashing with Crystal Ball. Because Crystal Ball is very much, I mean, like, it's just about sort of making deals with the Democrats and sort of finding ways to sort of soften the popular anger at the rich. Whereas Savant is saying, no, the idea is to clarify things. To, you know, clarify who's on what side and actually build a mass movement. And to the extent that you're going to do electoral politics, I think that is a sensible way of doing it, because it actually has some chance of at least getting someplace. But, so let's check this out.
Adam Smith, Democrat ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, and so this week we thought it'd be a good idea to interview one of his primary opponents, and she joins us now. Kshama Sawant is an independent socialist running in the jungle primary against Representative Adam Smith. Smith, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, of course. And so in just a second, I'd love for you to give people a little bit of your background, what you're able to accomplish on the Seattle City Council. But first, I wanted to give you a chance to react to some of that interview with Representative Adam Smith. Let's go ahead and take a look.
I mean, this guy is truly vile.
Views with regard to Israel specifically, because he's taken some interesting votes recently. Jake Sullivan, who just came out and said that he regrets the Biden policy of the bear hug. He thinks
I mean, could we just call it the genocide? Because that's what it is. The policy is a genocide. Not saying it to the faces of guys like this. I mean, you have to be able to say that to the face of it. I know he will be pissed off at you for saying it, because just by acknowledging it, you're acknowledging that he has committed some very serious crimes and absolutely should be brought to book for them. But that's exactly why you got to say it. You've got to actually, you know, either let them storm off and look like really big assholes, or squirm in their seats as they hear people just refer matter-of-factly to a genocide that they're directly involved in as a genocide.
Should have done more to restrain Israel.
Done more. Done anything.
If you have any regrets, because now you're voting in a somewhat different way, you know, both with the NDAA shift in position, with the Massey Amendment saying, hey, we should blockade. I want to send a message to...
I do not really watch Hassan or Kyle Kulinski with any regularity, but I'm not surprised that they don't, because she is not connected with the Democrats. She isn't connected with DSA, and she does not, you know, she does not actually endorse their playbook.
Netanyahu. At the peak of the Gaza onslaught, you had a complete...
She avoided calling it a genocide a second time. Just call it what it is, for fuck's sake. Because I'm pretty sure... correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but I feel like she has elsewhere normally acknowledged that it's a genocide. I don't think that she is a genocide denialist. But she's, like, avoiding it here.
Entire neighborhoods that were leveled. They created the largest population of child amputees. Do you have any regrets about your votes during that time period?
I don't, because...
Because you're a scumbag.
Everyone forgets about October 7th.
Oh, fuck you! Everyone forgets about October 7th. Fuck you.
It's about what Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran have done, and...
I mean, so, wait. That's his answer to this. He's actually really kind of doing the full-on... He's still doing a pro-genocide. This is actually... Okay, this is an example of something that is clarifying. Because he has switched his votes on some things because he has looked at the polls too. This guy is a genocidal scumbag with the best of them. And he also realizes that that is going to be a political liability going forward, potentially for a long time.
Their desire is to wipe out the state of Israel and all the Jews living there.
No, I mean, that's not true. I mean, yes, the state of Israel they don't want. What no decent person should. It's a shitty thing. It is a regime that should not exist.
Is that not? I mean, that's in Hamas's charter.
No, it isn't actually. They don't say anything about wiping out all the Jews. In fact, in their charter, they very specifically distinguish between Jews and the Zionist movement and the Zionist regime. They're very specific about that in their charter.
Hamas is still extent. They're still doing that. I don't.
What do you mean they're still doing that? Still, I mean, they're the only ones following the fucking ceasefire. They have not fired a single shot in anger at Israel since they signed that thing.
Like the way Israel decided to defend themselves.
Fuck you.
But the solution being proposed is, and this is the consequence of what you're saying is, sorry, you know, we had this idea back in 1948, we were going to give you a state.
Yeah, and it was a bad idea.
And that way you could protect yourself against all these attacks. Didn't work out, so...
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's, I mean, no notes. That's exactly how I do it. Say, just walk up to him and say, yeah, I mean, you had a state. You could have tried to do something decent with it. You didn't. So we're yanking it. We're pulling the plug. You can figure out what to do in a democratic Palestine instead. Maybe you should learn to respect your neighbors a bit more. Hello, River Rune. Good to see you, always.
Just so people know, the way that things work in Washington is kind of similar to California. Everybody, regardless of their political party, runs in this jungle primary, and then the top two move on to the general election in the fall. I'm curious, Kashama, what did you think of that response, and what did you think?
And what do you think of this term jungle primary, which strikes me as just a little bit racist?
From that interview in general from Representative Smith.
First of all, the fact that he reached out to you, Crystal, to do the interview itself to me is an indication of his nervousness because
Yeah, absolutely.
he's a very, very conservative Democrat. He's a long-standing warmongering Democrat. Let's be clear, he's been in Congress for 29 years, which is longer than many of my campaign volunteers have been alive. And he is one of the 5 remaining House Democrats who voted for the war on Iraq. And he has the blood of 1 million Iraqis on his hands.
That is an undercount. 1 million was the figure by 2006.
He's voted for tens of billions of dollars for genocide in Gaza, and it's really telling that when you asked him, do you have any regrets, he says he has no regrets. And throughout the show, he was on your show for 45 minutes, he absolutely erased the Palestinian people. Absolutely.
161. Hello, Aliana the Starbard. I'm guessing that's 161 as in Alpha Foxtrot Alpha?
Erase them. They refuse to acknowledge the apartheid state that they're living in, and any of the moves he's made right now to pivot away from, or seemingly to pivot away from, his blood-drenched record is, in my view, entirely because of the pressure he's feeling from.
Well, I don't think I've seen you here before. Welcome. If you don't mind my asking, where are you joining us from? We're watching this somewhat contentious interview between Kshama Savant and Crystal Ball and that shithead Ryan Grimm.
Campaign. I mean, obviously, he's the Democratic Party as a whole, the establishment as a whole.
Well, you missed Adam Smith reminding everybody. Oh, okay. I've been through there on the megabus, on the and the train. I've never actually really spent any time in Eastern Toronto. She, her. I've been through there on the way to Montreal. No. I'm just south of you, actually. I'm in Ohio. I'm on the other side of Lake Erie, and then a few hours drive south of that. But I've spent some time up there. Well, what over the? Yeah, okay. I'm curious what you've heard now. I mean, when you first said that, I thought this was to do with the wildfire smoke. And actually, Southwest Ohio has been completely dodged that bullet. It's all gone down to the southeast. But, okay, I'm kind of curious what people hear about Ohio from outside of Ohio. Because I had just read this report from Gender Justice. They decided to, okay. I understand. Oh, no, nothing to apologize for. I appreciate the discretion. I actually think that is a very good thing. But, wait. So, pas de problème. Yeah. Ohio turns out to be the number 3 source of trans refugees internally in the U.S. Just behind Texas and fucking Florida. It's bad here.
Pressure from the recent victories against the establishment Democrats in New York City and Colorado State. But as far as Adam Smith personally is concerned, he is an APAC darling. He's bankrolled by the billionaires who profit from...
Oh, no, I mean, again, nothing for you to be sorry for, but I appreciate it. This is a multilingual channel, incidentally. I mean, most people, most of the people in chat are English speakers, so I mostly speak English, but that is not the only language that, all languages are welcome. I had actually considered and ultimately rejected the idea okay. 你说中文吗? I recognize that la anywhere. I was considering there was this podcast by these horrible right-wing ghoul shithead fuckers from South Africa about about 2 of these Afrikaner refugees who had came over. Some this couple who were on The Real Housewives of Pretoria. They are white supremacist grifters. One of them is a lawyer, and they basically scammed their way through South Africa. Had all sorts of Yes, had all sorts of like charges and lawsuits against them in South Africa, so they decided to take advantage of Trump's offer. And they came over here and promptly got arrested for shoplifting in Florida. So they apparently burnt all their bridges here. And so they went on this fucking right-wing white nationalist Afrikaner podcast to like give their side of it. And I was thinking of doing it, but I decided against it because the entire thing is in Afrikaans, which would mean I would have to translate the Afrikaans and roast it at the same time. Although I guess being Afrikaans, I should say I would be braaiing it. And that seemed like that was going to be a lot of work for me, so I decided not to do it.
Here and Lockheed Martin, all of that. So he's very much an entrenched warmongering Democrat. He's a general among the warmongers, and any pivot he's making is precisely because he's.
No, I'm not, but I speak Afrikaans. I'm not from there. I've never been to South Africa even, but at one point I noticed that I could understand Afrikaans, like I could read it because I speak Dutch, and because I could more or less read it in the first place, I decided I wanted to learn it properly. And it's a really interesting language, and it gets a very bad rap, I should note. It is a whole language example of cultural appropriation. Here's the Discord server for the channel if you'd like to join. But actually, Afrikaans is not the language of white South Africans. It is the language of the people who were colonized by them. Oh, interesting. That could be various countries. I'm trying to think. Maoist insurgents. I mean, that could be Naxalites. That could be in the Philippines. I mean, I guess Nepal as well. There's been a fair bit of Maoist insurgency going around, actually. Okay, not the Naxalites then, I don't think.
Actually, specifically,
I feel like that wound down a bit.
By our campaign, and that is why he literally voted no on his own bill to give Trump $1 trillion for war. I mean, who votes against your own bill when it's only when you're nervous about your opponent? And I don't know if you heard right now, just a few days ago, he said, "Oh, I think we need $15 an hour."
I try to pay attention to things. Oh shit! The Discord link doesn't work. What happens? If anyone else can try sending a Discord link into chat. Oh, that's weird. 이상하네. 또 한번 고시시키. Okay, 고시시카루.
Minimum wage. I mean, it's like newsflash for you, Dave. We want $15 an hour in Seattle in 2014, and that Seattle has spread, that $15 has spread to many cities and states because what?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I did not know, she did an interview that was quite good in Current Affairs that's worth reading. Ah, strange. Okay, maybe it'll work on the laptop. And apparently one thing I did not know about the way they set up that increase is that it is automatically indexed to inflation. So actually the minimum wage in Seattle now is $21 and some change, which is not bad. Seattle is incidentally one of the takeaways from this report on trans refugees in the US is that that's where a lot of people are going. In fact, Seattle is having a bit of a crisis because so many trans people from the rest of the country, from states like this one, or worse yet, like Kansas or fucking Texas or Florida, oh, link spammers, are going there, and there's so many that they don't, it's overwhelming the services, they don't have places to live, even though the rent is actually better there than a lot of the West Coast.
Working people organize around it, and these guys are so behind. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour still.
And so, can you set the stage a little bit? Tell people who aren't familiar with your career about your kind of first 2013 run and how it is that you got to where you are now.
Yeah.
I want to skip over this. We don't have a whole lot more time, but I want to get into, because she talks about her idea of what she intends to do. How she intends to use, if she wins office, what she's going to do with it, and how that differs from, say, the approach that these sort of DSA SOCDEMs are doing. And I thought that was really interesting. Because I think, although I don't think electoral politics is really going to get us anywhere in this country, except maybe on the very local level and, the state level to some extent. But to the extent that you're going to do it, to the extent and that you're going to run for office and win office in this country, I think she has a good idea of, the ways that you can actually use that in a pro-working class way.
To Israel and to win free healthcare.
So after that victory, you then had the 2015 and 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign, which led to this kind of
good. Thank you, River.
For Democratic Socialists of America. And if we can put up F4, people can see.
This is a link for this conversation. We're definitely not going to see all of it tonight, but it is absolutely very well worth your while. So if anyone wants to see it in full, that's where you can. River Rune is always very helpful here. I mean, it's one thing you'll find if you hang out here more is it's a very wholesome chat. It's mostly a handful of people. It's a very manageable number of people, and everybody's pretty chill. It's generally there is link spam, but very rarely have we had assholes in chat. Once in a while they show up, but it's a very great while. I think probably because I'm just not visible enough for the assholes to find me.
It ticks down a little bit, and then boom, you see the campaign of New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and you see DSA membership surging again. He effectively challenged 3 incumbent Democrats in New York City, knocked 2 incumbent Democrats out, knocked out the kind of head of the Brooklyn party, who was backed by the outgoing incumbent. Then the DSA wins out in Denver, Colorado. They have a couple campaigns coming in Michigan as well, Detroit in particular. But talk to us a little bit about what your view is of DSA, which has become...
okay, here we go. I wish I had gotten here just a few minutes earlier. Yeah, I mean, I can count it in... There was one memorable moment, which only I really remember, because at the time practically nobody was in my chat. This is in probably the very first year that I was doing this. Caleb Maupin had seen some of the streams I had done reacting to his bullshit, showed up in my chat, and demanded a debate on the spot. And I blocked him. And yes, anti-asshole action. And he then immediately tried to put me on blast on Twitter and tried to claim that I was terrified. Actually, I was playing chess. Back then I did a lot of game streaming on here, mostly because I just couldn't think of things to say, and there just wasn't all that much going on in chat. But I had just blundered my rook, and I hadn't even noticed that he had sent this message in the first place. I only noticed it 5 minutes later, because I was busy trying to figure out if there was any way I could recover the fucking position, which there wasn't. But he took this still of me looking and put it on Twitter, and he didn't have my Twitter ID, so I just blocked him, and he couldn't actually do much with it after that.
An argument that their strategy overall is flawed. How do you square how you understand the DSA with how they've done over the last several months and years?
I think it's really, really important what's happening. I agree with you. These are historic defeats of entrenched Democrats like Adriano Espaillat and Diana DeGette, in New York City and Colorado, respectively. I mean, these were seemingly invincible Democrats, incumbents, and they were defeated. And it is a decisive repudiation of the Zionist agenda, of the pro-billionaire agenda that the Democratic establishment subscribes to. And it's really crucial because it is in the context of the Democratic and Republican parties, in my view, and this is part of the difference of strategy and also analysis that I have from some of the DSA leadership, which is that, in my view, the Democratic and Republican parties both are together are the 2 most powerful parties of global capitalism. And
yeah, I mean, I would make the slight adjustment to say I don't think you can even really call them 2 parties. In most systems, these would be 2 factions in one party, and to a great extent that is how they behave. For all of the kayfabe that they do on the cameras, I mean, fundamentally they're all on one side.
But the recent primary victories of the Democratic Socialists of America shows that, first of all, that tens of millions of working class people in the United States are angry. They're really angry at the status quo. They're angry about the genocide in Gaza, about the forever wars. And many of the people who voted for Trump are also angry because, remember, Trump ran on the agenda of ending the wars, and now he's become the warmonger in chief. And so there is huge anger in society, and so it's not a coincidence that you have Trump having very low approval ratings, but so do the Democratic and Republican parties.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we've run out of time, really. But yeah, fundamentally, you see a lot of flawed analysis that says that this is some sort of a new thing. But really what's new is that there are options being made available to people in these primaries that are more consistent with where they've stood for a long time. You know, people have wanted universal health care in this country, the majority since the 80s. And on all sorts of other things. I mean, if you ask people, like, would you agree with the statement that the political and economic system is fundamentally rigged and is just only really benefits the rich? I mean, that gets overwhelming majorities and has for decades. But there, for the most part, has been no electoral outlet for it. So what these DSA people are doing is providing an electoral outlet, and the result is exactly what you'd predict if you did a serious study of polling, which is that people will flock to this if they think it's something. But it is time to wrap up for tonight. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you for joining me today. I will be back on Friday at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I very much look forward to seeing you then. And welcome, Aliana the Starbard. It's always nice to get new people. I hope to see you in chat a lot. So, yes. Have a good rest of your weekend. And I hope to see you next week, all of you. Have a good night.